What up, what up, what up? Yeah, I know it's super late if you're watching this live. Appreciate everybody who hops in while it's still going on. But for the most part, I wanted to make sure I did a thorough show. So I took my time, especially considering I don't have boyfriend responsibilities today. I was able to go through and do the show that I wanted to do. Not one that's like super accelerated or anything like that for time's sake. We are gonna talk about a good chunk of show or a good chunk of stories that have already happened, like nothing too crazy or anything like that, but we gotta do the same stuff that we always do, guys. Shout out to everybody who, once again, shout out to everybody who hops into the chat, hangs out, all that jazz like that. We have not skipped a single frame yet. God is good, if there is one, all the time. Shout out to everybody who's checking this out. We are going to talk about the NBA, the NFL. We're going to talk about college basketball. What else we got? I got soccer stories today. Yeah, I feel like I did. I feel like I tried to be well-rounded. Not going to come out here and try and convince you that I'm, dropping some gems on you in terms of like the World Cup draw and everything like that. I personally am just excited to be here. You know what I mean? I'm very much like the United States of America, just happy to be here. And trying to keep the expectations reasonable, which means, of course, the World Cup final, totally fine, totally cool. Maybe we do that. Wow, all my music is gone. What? Jesus, man. It's not gone. It's just misplaced, which is like a real thing. If you're a person that does music, it's pretty fun. Or if you're a person that records stuff, because actually I have a music folder specifically for this occasion. What else what is the name of the theme song for the show? Does anybody know? Anybody remember? I don't, to be honest with you. Yo, is it even in here? Oh, dude. Hold on. Not great. Can't hear it right now. Let me see. Oh, it's Spreaker doing Spreaker things. Good thing we don't depend on Spreaker to play audio anymore. Is it not routing at all to my headphones? Wow, man. I wish I could be like an app on a computer that just takes off. Like it's not playing audio. Like what the hell is up with this stupid oh, Jesus, man. G-Track. Yeah, man. So, well, it's not playing audio because I have the music track all the way down. That was on me. I'm sorry, Spreaker. I'm sorry I doubted you. Although you have failed me many times in the past, I just want to make that clear. Well, we might have to go with the. We might have to go. What the hell? Where is it? I've downloaded it like 7 times. I guess not. I guess I needed to download it 8 times. Oh, man. Let's see. Hopefully no copyright hits today. Which has been a problem. I'm not even going to lie, guys. We're never going to get rich off this show. Let's just put it like that. Straight up, like I think my last like 7 lives I've gotten hit with a copyright thing. I'm going to turn that down so we're not just blaring your ears out. In case it's like super loud somewhere else. That's not it. Straight up though, so many copyright hits for no reason. Because Christina didn't post her stuff to YouTube. The people who are using the same beat software are getting copyright hits off of it. Even though they're not like copyrighted beats. They're just beats that are on YouTube, and apparently that gets you enough coverage from YouTube that you now control things. You run shit around here. Legit can't find the theme song for the show. What a time. Maybe it's a sign we need to shift to the other one that I've always wanted to do. Just pausing both real quick. Sorry. Or not. Okay. Yeah, like straight up can't find the old theme song. That's so weird. Anyway, we can just play the song that I actually enjoy, but I used on an. If I had heard it earlier, honestly, it would be the theme song for the show. But I heard it retroactively, and it became a theme song for a podcast that I don't do anymore. So, yeah. Should I tweet about the show? By the way, if you're watching this like retroactively, it's 1:18 in the morning here in Houston, Texas. So, yeah. I will say this. It's a lot of people online right now, like Haley and Kendra, who, if you follow them on TikTok, they also apparently stream on a regular basis. And I think the money from their streams gets donated to people that help keep other people alive. And I think they get donations for like the Trevor Project or something like that, which is for LGBTQ youth. Had a really good conversation with an older black man today about the, how black people have their protests for freedom constantly co-opted by groups of people, and sometimes that group of people is the LGBTQ community, because it is such a wide-ranging amount of people. Some, to a certain point, some ignorant of their privilege, like we talked about white gay people or white trans people that are quote-unquote passable by other people's standards and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm not even supposed to be in this screen right now. I just realized that. We're supposed to be on the starter screen. Who cares? We got 2 hydration breaks. Anyway, I had a conversation about that didn't come off like what Dave Chappelle's... The way that Dave Chappelle was trying to have a conversation, quote-unquote, have a conversation about the same exact thing. But we didn't do that thing where we discount the existence of black queer people. What a concept. Double checking the sound here. What an amazing concept to not discount the existence of another group of people for the sake of the to fight against the oppression from another group of people for another group of people. What a concept. Nobody could ever figure out how to do that and be a reasonable human being. Anyway, we got a show to do here. It's time to cook it up. It's time to get it in the pot. It's time to stir it up, ladies and gents. This is probably going to be the fastest we started this show, mainly because I don't have to do social media stuff this late at night. Even though I feel like I should. I feel like you know what? We're going to copy and paste the old tweet that kind of got a couple of likes or whatever. Also, if you are a woman in the Houston area and interested in playing for the Houston Cosmos at Nationals in Salt Lake City, Utah, let your boy know. We need as many female/non-male players as possible. We out here, we struggling. My last season, potentially, with my team that I started with. Yeah, let me see. Sorry, I'm trying to find the old tweet that we're just gonna copy and paste and be like, go to this link and watch me talk about sports. It happened days ago because I haven't done this show in a while. Wow, I feel like I just beat myself up about like how infrequently I do this show. Yet the simple fact of like I don't have like a full-time job to focus on this show specifically. But yeah, man, I honestly have been contemplating going there 3 days a week for a while now. We'll see what happens. Is it gonna go to the right thing? It's not. It's gonna go to last week's episode, but don't worry, we can fix that. Sorry, I'm talking about the my YouTube account. Oh shit. Yep. Let's see, Broke Boys. By the way, if you haven't liked or followed, shame on you. Like and follow Broke Boy Sports on YouTube and on Twitch. Would like to point out some dude, like, once again, people do extra shit for like no reason. I was at Dollar General because they sell Mountain Dew Rise there. Don't ask. Yes, I do have a crippling addiction to Mountain Dew Rise. As a matter of fact, there are 2 cans slightly off screen over here, but don't worry, we're not going to be drinking any of that. It's 1:30 in the morning, and we probably won't finish the show until like maybe 3 a.m. I did take an an ill-advised nap at like 5 or 6 o'clock or something like that, and I'm definitely gonna suffer for it. You know, it's we out here fighting these battles like Christina's songs say sometimes. I can't believe I almost did all of last week's show. Did we really just go offline? Did that really just happen just now? No, that's impossible because that would mean that. Sorry, it's showing like I only was live for 10 minutes. Let me refresh this real quick. Okay, cool. Because when the multi-stream went down last time, the YouTube stream went to like a green screen, but you could hear the audio from what I was saying. It was very weird. But yeah, Twitch is doing Twitch shit again. This downloadable play-in app that they have or whatever is rough, bro. They be struggling to make shit happen on this app. Ooh, boy. 10 minutes ago. We live right now. Just like we've been. I think that's just a glitch. I think that's a glitch. I hope it's a glitch. Because, quite frankly, it's kind of fucking stupid. Copy URL. This is all to replace a fucking tweet. I could have written from scratch or whatever. Because I have to rephrase how it's. There we go. I'm live. Hop in the stream. Ooh, hold on. Here we go. Don't worry, guys. It's almost over. Your long suffering is almost over. What's the hot hashtag right now at 1:25 in the morning? Damn, it doesn't show you that. I hate that they don't do that anymore. They do it on TikTok, and it's how all these companies that are still paying TikTok for fucking hashtags like it's gonna work or some shit like that. Like there are corporations that think that they're going to start a trend that will pop off and make them a shit ton of money. Yes, it has happened in years past. Very few times has it been by the behest of the company. You know what I mean? Like the Tide Pods thing didn't pop off because Tide went out there and they paid a YouTuber to eat Tide Pods, right? Unless Big Tide working hard. I do love making the constant joke of everything is big whatever product it's selling. Like Big Milk. I was tweeting about Big Milk because quite frankly there is such thing as Big Milk. There's an organization that is not owned by any individual milk company, but their whole objective is to get you to drink milk, which sounds like something that Big Milk would be a part of, correct? Like that sounds like what Big Milk is built for. Wow, what a journey. Sorry, guys, we're almost done. I just got posted on Facebook in case the people who are my age are actually up at 1:30 in the morning on a Friday, and they're drunk and want to hop in the chat. I'm kidding. Oh man, I love posting and doing the social media stuff during fucking study hall. Which, by the way, if you have not been checking out study hall every single Tuesday, look at Mary looking fantastic. Mary is a woman that none of you know and none of you will know. Anyway, she was looking fantastic is all you need to know. Anyway, thing I wanted to point out. Wow, my friend. Strange. My friend got the same nail pattern as my girlfriend. They don't know each other, so that's even stranger. Anyway, what are we talking about? We're talking about. Damn it. Oh, I was talking about Study Hall. Yeah, so if you have not checked it out, check out Study Hall every single Tuesday. I come on here and I study for the podcast like a adult. I try to come on here and monetize me studying for the show. It used to have a more musical aspect to it in the background that kind of made it like we were in study hall and we had our headphones in kind of deal, which, by the way, I need to get back to. But the fact of the matter is every single one of those streams I've done, I got hit with a copyright strike. I will also point out all but one of the copyright strikes that I've challenged has been removed. So I think maybe YouTube is learning, but I only get hit with copyright strikes on YouTube for using the same exact music that I do when I'm simulcasting on Twitch. It's that time of the night where the oh shit, I'm scrolling on Twitter, and this guy named CJ Folger, who, by the way, great Twitter follow. He just posted a crash from an F1 race, and like the whole back end of a car just like gave out, like a person whose knees are cracking. Which, by the way, we're going to talk about an old football player doing young man things, and we'll see how long that goes for him. Hopefully, really well, because I feel like I'm getting to the point now where I'm rooting for old people. You know, I used to crack jokes about old people all the time, and now I'm becoming one. So yeah. Anyway, we move it. Ooh, goddamn, boy. Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero were doing the post-game press conference together for the Miami Heat because they locked up the 1 seed, and Tyler Hero tried to do a shoulder shimmy while wearing an Easter egg-colored shirt that has a Pokeball where the pocket is supposed to be, and he does it off rhythm with no snap to it whatsoever, and Bam Adebayo says, "You ain't got no rhythm." I mean, guys, we all need real friends. How many of us, right? Like, we all need real friends. Anyway, it's time to do the show. Let's do the show. Here we go. Going live in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else in between, my name is Ashton Gene Lewis. What you're witnessing right now is something that's truly rare. You're watching somebody chase their dream. My dream is to become the greatest sportscaster of all time, and the Broke Boy Sports Podcast is my vehicle to do so. I will be naturally trying to hustle as much money out of this show as I possibly can, while also doing the things and talking about the things that I enjoy in the way that I enjoy doing them. We can only hope that at some point nobody ever catches on to the fact that this is truly a dastardly plan to get paid to watch sports for a living. Even though I continuously say it at the beginning of every single show that we do here. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but before we do that, hit me up on Twitter at FB_Playbook. That's my sports Twitter account. My personal account is at TheAshtonJ. Hit me up on Instagram at TheAshtonForever. You can also hit me up at my the other social media thing that I do is TikTok. I actually am going to start trying to do my NFL draft prospects thing again, because a lot of people apparently enjoyed that. I'm still getting likes on that from videos that were happening months ago or whatever, so that was pretty cool. I appreciate everybody who checks those out, and I got to get back on it. I also think I'm going to start doing a sports trivia question every day, and the first one I want to do is how many number 1 overall picks in the history of the NFL have made it to the Hall of Fame. Because the answer is pretty simple. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a lot of stuff to do. Hit me up on social media. Also, don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitch, please hit that follow button. We're trying to get it popping off in here. We are one objective away from going affiliate, and it is 3 concurrent viewers in the course of a singular stream. Everything else we have achieved, every single thing about streaming on different days, the amount of hours that we stream per month. We just need to get the viewers up while the show is live. What does not help it is me doing the show at 1:30 in the morning, but nonetheless, I know that there's people out there who just don't sleep. There's people out there who work late at night, and I'm still in that phase where I'm trying to find out the people who get my notifications to their phone, like what time are they willing to come into the show? Because I know there's a good chunk of people. I need to close Twitter while I'm talking. It stops me from saying and stopping or whatever. There's a good chunk of people who follow me from other sports podcasts that they listen to and enjoy and stuff like that. Some people follow me out of in respect for me as a human individual, and I appreciate that. I really do. But I gotta start. I gotta build an audience that's gonna show up consistently. A lot of people follow out of just pure respect. I feel like a good chunk of people can get if you're just like a regular human being and you tell people you're starting a podcast and you tweet about it, you post about it a little bit here and there, eventually you'll get up to like 50 followers pretty easily. It took me a while to do it. One, because I didn't really value this medium of how we do the show for some reason when we were doing it, mainly because we used to like distribute to like 7 different podcasting sites or whatever, and do YouTube and do Twitch or whatever. And I just recently kind of mastered the whole system of, not mastered, but I've recently started to dominate getting on OBS, making sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, understanding how to cut clips out, making sure that I cut clips out from the show and post them to my TikTok account, which has gotten me a couple of likes here and there, and I appreciate that. But, other than that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to actually do the show. This is what you came here for. You didn't come here to hear me and talk about podcasting. They already have podcasts about podcasts, and they already have podcasts about how to do podcasts while you're podcasting, and how to transition into the market of talking about podcasts as a podcaster. Legitimately, everything that I just said is a very real thing. You can look it up and find it yourself. Anyway, let's go to Nerd News. That's our first segment. By the way, we got all the segments this week except, hold on. There's one that I couldn't work on. Oh, well, we do have Streaks and Peaks. It's just a different version of it. Yeah, we got Nerd News. We got Best of the Best. We got Worst of the Worst. We got About a Week Ago. We got We Talking Money or We Talking Money. We got a media suggestion. We also have What's Poppin', where we just talk about regular sports stories and stuff like that. I got a top 5 for you. Well, it's really top 3 this week. I got a top 3 for you that is going to be, the TikTok that I post about to get people to come watch the show or anything. We do have 2 hydration breaks throughout the course of the show, so be prepared for that. I will point this out. No free ads, but this here Whiskey Cola premix is the best one that I've ever had. Hold on, let me go to the big screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. Let's go to What's Poppin'. Like, legitimately, they don't pay me for this or anything like that. If you are a person that doesn't like to mix your drinks or whatever, there's been a sudden rise because the seltzer industry has popped off or whatever. There's been a sudden rise of, like, this, these alcohol companies taking their drinks and then making, like, the iconic drinks that you order at a bar and pre-mixing them into a can. There are obviously a shit ton of laws that go along with how much alcohol can actually go in each can. There's a Crown Royal version that's out there, and God forbid I say this and then Crown Royal tries to hit me up about the $100 million contract that I needed to be able to watch sports for the rest of my life for free. Anyway, Crown Royal has a version of it. I enjoy it sometimes. It's got a lot of cola in it. This one, I can actually taste the whiskey that's in it or whatever. And also, if you're a person right now that's wondering, what kind of alcohol is in all the seltzers that I drink? It's called malt liquor. That's right. It's what Mad Dog 2020 is, right? 40 ounces, all that kind of shit. You know, the alcohol that people demonize black people for drinking and try to use it as an insult for a really long time. And now it is what pretty much every person on the face of the planet drinks when they go out, or what they buy from the corner store every single Friday and call their drink of choice, malt liquor. One of the most flexible liquors in the game, also one of the cheapest to make. What else we got here? Oh, we got Nerd News. Let's start there. It's actually not Nerd News. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, we renamed it Geek News because that's what it really is about. But I got a cool one here for you today. Another superhero collab that's going on right now. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about. I could have talked about Bruce Willis announcing that he has like some disease that, by the way, I didn't read the story. The only way I know about this, the situation with Bruce Willis is because I listened to Fat Man Beyond, which has Kevin Smith. And at the end of the show, he talks about his connection with Bruce Willis and how for the longest time in his life, all he ever wanted was for Bruce Willis to think he was cool. And his connection with Bruce Willis and why it kind of fell off and why it kind of fell apart a little bit, or what he thought why it fell apart kind of deal. And maybe it didn't actually fall apart. Anyway, Kevin Smith has said some things about Bruce Willis in the public media, which, guess what, for Bruce Willis is kind of par for the course. That doesn't mean it's okay. That doesn't mean that he shouldn't feel bad or anything like that. A lot of people really love to use that excuse to be shitty to people that are famous that may or may not see what they actually write. And as time goes on, I'll tell you this much. The more and more podcasts I listen to that are hosted or have guests where it's like a pro athlete talking to a pro athlete, where they're far more honest and far more open about things than when they're talking to media members, because, well, as I listen to more and more podcasts, I realize there are media members that are deceitful, that are trying to get over on a lot of the pro athletes. And I feel like they know who those guys are, but sometimes you're just not going to get the best version of a person, right? Like Howard Beck, who's been on this show, who's graced us with his presence on this show once, can tell you, man, it takes years and years of respect amongst people. And I think it's safe to say that a lot of the younger athletes are far more wary of a lot of just media in general, because a lot of younger athletes didn't grow up in a time period where there were limitations on who could and could not be a sports journalist. And those limitations were the ability to reach people by writing things. Like, you could have a terrible take, you could write lies about a person, but you couldn't distribute it at the pace that the Houston Chronicle could. And let's be honest, every single day on the internet, there are tweets that reach more people, multiple tweets, probably thousands of tweets that reach more people than the Houston Chronicle does, probably in an entire week of distributing their paper, right? So if you write a story in the Houston Chronicle, or you can write a story in the Houston Chronicle, or you can be a person that has a blog that 10,000 people click on in a single week. And a sports journalist for the Houston Chronicle, one of the few standalone newspapers in a major city left in America, is now second fiddle to a guy who just writes what he feels, or a gal or a person who just writes what they feel on the internet. Sometimes that happens. It really does. You just have to hope that the person who gets and wields that kind of power wields it responsibly, for a multitude of reasons. I don't know how we got on this conversation, but I think I was talking about. I don't even remember how we got on that. Anyway, the Geek News connection, there's a superhero collab between the Justice League for DC and Puma. They got a whole line of closeout. It's not just these shoes that are pictured right here. It's a whole line of gear. You should definitely check it out. I thought it's pretty cool. I thought it was cool overall. I really enjoyed some of the stuff that I saw. I only showed you this shoe because the picture is massive. Hold on. I can probably, there it is. Just make it take up the whole photo or the whole screen. So yeah, they got the shoes right there. Obviously using black models, which is cool. Cause being a model and being black is difficult just in general. Trying to make it in the game. You can see there, that looks like it's a whole bunch of Wonder Woman people or Wonder Woman copies on there. Oh no, it's just the entire Justice League on that hoodie. That's cool. There's another one where it's just a Justice League shirt. That is the whole Justice League kind of etched out on that hoodie. Apparently this stuff is 50% off or whatever as well. I don't know why it's on such a steep sale. But those Pumas, I'm not going to lie, those Pumas look kind of cool. You know how it goes, guys. You know how life goes. You get a brand, you kind of stick with it for a while. I don't know how that happens, dude. OBS is so strange. It moves in mysterious ways sometimes, folks. But nonetheless, I thought that was really cool. I thought this whole collab that they were doing is cool, because anytime somebody makes superhero gear, I think a lot of people who are athletes and enjoy geek stuff really kind of flip out about it, because it's oh man, I can have workout gear that looks like I'm the Flash. Because remember, Under Armour did that. They signed a deal with DC, and they made all that Batman, Superman gear and stuff like that. That was really cool. And I think it's always going to be a fan favorite amongst people who are athletic, and then of course geeks themselves and just regular people as well. Moving on, let's talk about the best thing that I saw in sports. This is the show that this is the segment that this entire show is built. Actually, there's two segments that this show is built off of. We call this show the best and the worst that sports has to offer every single week. Right now, I'm about to show you the best thing that I saw in sports, and then after the hydration break, which is after best of the best, we will talk about the worst thing that I saw in sports, which was worst of the worst. So we start here at the top. Best of the best, ladies and gentlemen. Straight off the couch, a man who said this quote. And I'll let you sit home and guess, if you will, for about 10 seconds as I read this one. If it's Johnny Football, it doesn't matter. If it's Pee Wee Herman, as long as they throw the ball where it needs to be and put it in my catch radius, I'm going to do my best to make stuff happen with it. This is a comment, a quote, if you will. You should will, because it is a quote. It's a quote from a famous athlete who is, as the segment says, coming off the couch, out of retirement, and joining a very specific league. So I gave you about 20 seconds there after I finished reading the quote. If you got your answer, yell it really loudly so everybody around you can hear out of context, please. Really loudly. All right. All right, you yelled it. I didn't hear it. Cool. So I'm assuming that none of you said the actual answer, which is Terrell Owens. This is a comment from T.O., who is now in the fan-controlled football league. If you have not, he plays for the Zappers, which is the Johnny Manziel led/owned. Actually, I think Johnny Manziel he's the starting quarterback. That he's part of the coaching staff and the and part owner, because the owners of the fan control football league teams are all like famous people. That's their whole objective, is to get people who have like huge media profiles to talk about and tweet about the fan control football league. So they let you buy like 2% of the team or whatever it is. Like Destroying, who's the number one or number two football vlogger. I think personally he's number two behind AJ Green. That's just my personal opinion. I enjoy both of their things that they both do, and actually it's cool that they have two different approaches to doing the same thing. I enjoy it a lot, but I think he's number two to AJ Green, who is actually like a really, really athletic guy who thought he was going to get drafted in the USFL, and it didn't pan out for him. We'll see what happens as time goes on, as the USFL season rolls around. You guys know how it goes. People get hurt, and then all of a sudden, you're on a team's radar, right? But nonetheless, Fan Control Football League has been blowing up for the past couple of years. It is offensive centric. The field is much smaller. It is there is a ton of it's very similar to the NFL rules essentially, because it's heavily leaning towards the offense, because the owner of the league said that so I listened to like a whole spiel about it like a couple of years ago, and if I remember off the top of my head, the owner of the league, the inventor of the league, the founder, said that he like went on Twitter and he looked up the series of words that are most connected with football, and he came up with like touchdown, catch, reception, kind of deal like that. So he feels like he should be fully inspired and lean into the offensive side of the football, which I find to be stupid, because people actually don't enjoy like 60 to 64, bro. 60 to 63. People don't, because it's like, wow, this isn't even fun, because they're just throwing the ball back and forth, right? Like, there's actually no good defensive plays even happening in the course of this game. There's a good collection of people like myself who enjoy seeing great defensive plays. I really do. Anyway, this is a quote from Terrell Owens, who is now the newest member of the Zappers, a team in the Fan Control Football League. Why is it fan controlled? You may be asking yourself. It's a 7-on-7 football league where, if you've ever seen this it's actually on TikTok, and I've seen a couple of things on Facebook. But it is a league where if you're sitting at home, you can log in and you can help and vote on the plays that are called on offense for the team that's on offense. Like, you can vote on what play gets called, and then they have to run that play according to the league. So it's an interesting dynamic. I have not looked at their head coaching numbers, but I would imagine there's a heavy amount of turnover for head coaches in the Fan Control Football League. It is an opportunity for a lot of guys to get eyes on, because if there's one thing the Fan Control Football League has done in this climate that we live in, by the way, if you sit back and you think about it, we've never had this many leagues going on at one time. We got the Spring League, which happens in the spring, and it's on Fox on a regular basis. We have the Fan Control Football League. We have the USFL. Right? USFL is coming back. I don't know how that lawsuit's going for them, but we'll see. And then we have the XFL, which has shown itself to be partnered in a lot of different ways. For instance, like running experimental rules for the NFL to see how it plays out when it's all said and done. And then, of course, the NFL. Right? We've never been in a market like this, and that's not including the CFL. Right? Like, the CFL gets some play down here in America. But we've never had this kind of market with this many pro opportunities for guys out there in the realm of football, right? And it starts to encroach on the value placement sometimes, I would say, of college football players, right? Because the college football players are like kids, and you can go here and look at multiple pro leagues and find guys that can run against like athletes that are proven to be high caliber, probably athletes that are better than the kids that are coming out of college, athletes that have shown themselves to be able to conduct themselves in a professional manner, in terms of like not getting involved with things that involve with the police showing up, kind of deal like that, or all that kind of jazz, like the whole aspect of being a pro, and then dominating at a league that is below the NFL in terms of like overall talent, but nonetheless those are professional football players that person is playing against, right? Like they're all an opportunity to get on somebody's radar, and I think that's pretty cool, man. Especially considering what used to happen to guys when they went undrafted or they didn't make it to the league, right? Darren Waller's told the story about how he failed all those drug tests or whatever, and he ended up at one point working, I think it was at Whole Foods, as like a stalker or a cashier guy or something like that. You should definitely check it out on the Pivot Podcast. That's one of their better episodes, not the most recent one where they talk shit about Russell Wilson being a square, and it's just really funny to hear that coming from Channing Crowder, who, you know, I'm not a woman or anything like that, but I think I have a pretty good grip on like the kind of guy that women think physically look attractive. And I think Russell Wilson is a better looking dude than Channing Crowder, even though I enjoy the fact that Channing Crowder seeks nothing but chaos when he's on the Pivot Podcast. He asks some pretty good questions overall when he's on the show. I do enjoy what he brings to the Pivot Podcast, but I thought it was really weird that he went out of his way to call Russ corny, because like Russ clearly is doing a thing, and Russ is masking, right? Like he's not like, I'm not talking about like he's autistic or anything like that, but like Russ is like putting out stuff that can't be used against him later, right? Like Antonio Brown does the exact opposite of Russell Wilson. Antonio Brown is 100% unabashedly himself at all times, according to him, right? And Russ is okay with pretending to be somebody else in the public eye because he doesn't give a fuck what you think. He doesn't want you to know who he is. He doesn't want you in his business. He doesn't want you hanging out with him all. He doesn't want you to feel like you know him as a person. And that's cool, because that's that's going to get him on the path to making a ton of money later on in his NFL career, when his NFL career is over. He'll have even more brand sponsorships than he does now. And I think Russ is fully aware of what people think he is and what he actually is. And I think that's a higher level of understanding, because he clearly is two different people. He's very much two different people on purpose for a reason. I don't know whose idea that was, who came up with it or whatever, but it's an interesting choice to have to put up, like, he's literally like living well, I guess you only live in one life when the camera's on. But yeah, to call him corny is actually, I think, disrespectful to what he's doing, because he's like basically playing a character when the camera's on. He's playing like the guy who's going to be the perfect sales pitch guy, but it's very clear that he's doing a thing, and it's not like a joke. It's a look. Maybe we'll find some things about Russ maybe we'll find some things out about Russ a little bit later on in life, if he ever opens up about it. Anyway, that was best of the best. T.O. is back. He's back playing professional football. Godspeed to, good luck to all the other guys who are trying to compete against him, because if there's one thing about Terrell Owens that he has constantly proven to be the truth about him, he is the anomaly of anomalies. He's the outlier of outliers, and that's why I'm fully expecting him to like really legitimately ball out in this league. There was a couple years ago where he ran like a 4.3 or something like that, 40-yard dash. And of course, he's still twice the size of the average DB, even though DBs are getting like progressively taller. He's still twice the size of the average DB and runs really fast. It's just all about injury prevention stuff. And if you, and I hope he talks about it on his Fubo TV podcast that he has. I actually have enjoyed the few clips that I've heard from it. I think it's called Get Your Popcorn. And I forgot who the other former NFL player that's on the show is, but he has a Fubo TV podcast that you can only watch fully if you are like subscribed to Fubo TV or whatever. I find that really dope. I hope he talks about it on his show. I hope somebody's following him around, because I would love to see his process of getting ready, because there's going to be a ton of dudes that are going to be in this league that are going to try and like talk to him and get as much advice as they possibly can from him on a regular basis. I wonder, because I've seen how T.O. acts on like the challenge when other people like don't back down to the greatness of his athleticism or whatever. I'll be interested to see how that shakes out for him in the long run, especially the kind of conditions, because there's like a Mickey Mouse aspect to the Fan Control Football League where like random dude sitting on the couch who has no idea what cover 2 is or even cover 3 or what a cloud or a razor or a Leo position is, and they get to pick what plays you run. I think there's a huge aspect to that. I don't know if T.O. owns a team or something like that, but if he did, I wouldn't be surprised. Or if this was like a pathway to owning a team, very similar to what the MLS does, where they have retired super famous soccer players, like world famous, like Wayne Rooney with Washington, and then Rafa with Miami, Miami FC, and then of course David Beckham was like the blueprint, right? Come to LA, start the Galaxy, make that happen. Now he owns one of the Miami teams. I don't think he owned part of the LA Galaxy. He just signed the biggest contract in MLS history because he signed a $100 million contract. And, they sold out. And the Galaxy became a contender, but not because of Beckham being on the team or whatever. But that started this whole long line of golden parachute retirement contracts for legendary soccer players, and maybe this is what T.O.'s doing to get some publicity for get some publicity for the league overall, and then of course get in a position to be able to buy the team. Because if there was one thing that T.O. I'm sure could do with, just like everybody else can, he could definitely use some more money. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our first hydration break of the show. As I say every single time we do this break, we don't judge what liquids you want to consume. We don't judge what form of hydration you choose to take as a path for you as a finely tuned human being, or maybe a not so finely tuned human being. I'm going to tell you this right now. You already know what I'm drinking. I'm drinking this whiskey and cola right here. I don't know why I'm holding it like I'm a fucking salesman. I really enjoy this. You should definitely check it out. I don't like whatever. Just look for this color pattern. It's like TX whiskey and cola, and it's the TX whiskey that you can see at like any store. I found this at Specs, and I've already drank 3 of them. Especially this past week. If you didn't see on my TikTok, I actually worked out 6 of the 7 days last week, and they were pretty high intense work. I burned 38,000 calories in 7 days. So yeah, it was tough. It was tough out here for your boy. So I hit like one of these after like 2 of my workouts, and it helped me a ton because my knees, not even necessarily my knees, but like I lifted a little bit. I did deadlifts and then played basketball, which is a terrible combination. But yeah, like my whole lower body was just like destroyed. Luckily, I like had no injuries from last week, but I did wake up with like a weird foot strain this morning, and it still like hasn't gone away. I think it's a hydration thing. I definitely need to drink some water because I'm planning to go to sleep and wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning and go try and play flag football. We'll see if that happens, or if I end up staying here editing this podcast and watching TV. Like, I've been watching One Piece and trying to catch up on stuff. I don't know why I'm talking to you about this type of shit. It's because it's late at night. I'm sorry. Hydration break number 1. See what we do music-wise here. We're probably going to go with Own the Night because it's already loaded up into the player. We're just going to live with that. Let it ride. Oh man. Yeah, I guess we'll have to save the rest for the other half of the hydration break, which I guess is many people would say that's good. I might not be one of those people. We'll find out. Only time will tell. Only time will tell, ladies and gents. We're back here live on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. I'm your broke boy, your local broke boy, the closest one that you know. But yeah, it's time to make fun of a state that, quite frankly, we should be asking why it's still a part of the Union. I'm kidding. They would try and start a civil war. Like that. They want to be Texas so bad they would start a civil war. Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, worst of the worst. Okay, Boomer. The recent success of Leah Thomas at the NCAA swimming championships, winning one of the national titles despite competing in multiple events, only getting one of those titles, but somehow she has uprooted and disrespected the entire span of the world, the entire world of sports, and so it has triggered a hate-filled. It's transphobic and misogynistic because it implies that women aren't good enough athletes to beat men, despite the fact that Leah Thomas has swam in multiple events and has not come in first place every single time. Anyway, and that can be said for a lot of other situations too as well, right? Leah Thomas, and I get it, the whole advantages of being identifying as a male and biological male for a really long period of time, lifting, running, the fact that men have the fact that men's bones are denser than women, whatever that has to do with it, the more naturally present testosterone in the male body than in the female body, and all that kind of stuff like that. Totally get it, totally understand that. Just want to point out, I don't think Oklahoma, who is let me make sure I get this right, ladies and gentlemen, the state of Oklahoma has made itself to worst of the worst because they are a state that is top 10 they're top 10, sorry, take it from the top. I'm trying to make this into a TikTok in case you couldn't tell. Ladies and gentlemen, worst of the worst, the state of Oklahoma. Okay, Boomer. The recent rise and success of Leah Thomas as a collegiate athlete has set off a firestorm of fake rage and outrage from a lot of people on the conservative/Republican side of things, and a series of anti-trans laws have been signed into existence. I would just like to point out the one in particular in Oklahoma, a state that is top 10 in poverty percentage, bottom 10 in education, almost dead last in healthcare, and the way healthcare is assessed, it is a combination of availability and quality of healthcare. They're 48th in that one. 43rd in public safety, aka crime presence overall in the state. They are 42nd in air and water quality. But hey, the governor just signed into law a bill that is going to fight off the true scourge that exists within the realm of Oklahoma as a state. The people who represent less than 1% of people, as far as we know, trans people who apparently are committing and creating all the issues that Oklahoma has as a state, and have pushed themselves to the forefront of issues that the governor of Oklahoma needs to focus on and write bills to prevent groups of people from oppressing other women. So shout out Oklahoma for once again being the greatest knockoff in the history of Texas. Oklahoma wants to be Texas so bad it's fucking ridiculous. And honestly, they're probably not even that good at it. Like Alberta, Canada, from what I hear, is way better at wanting to be Texas than Oklahoma is. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, that's worst of the worst. Is the entire state of Oklahoma, really the legislation and leadership of Oklahoma, because one of the stories I actually read said that there's actually been instances of trans athletes competing in Oklahoma, but there have not been people who have stepped forward to try and complain about the situation. I would also like to point out that continuously, over and over again, there seems to be one underlying factor for when the trans people become a problem, and it's when they win things. I was tweeting about it on my personal account of the Ashton J, and somebody responded. A member of Team USA Quidditch, Rachel Heald, responded with, "I saw somewhere on TikTok people talking about how people are okay with trans people existing. They're just not okay with them taking up space." And I feel like that's on fucking point. I would, like I said before about Oklahoma, top 10 in poverty, bottom 10 in education, but they're out here signing bills into existence to target trans athletes in high school and college sports. Maybe, just maybe, we focus on something else. Maybe, just maybe, we focus on the real issue here. But hey, that's why Oklahoma's Oklahoma, right? Shout out to those dumbasses. Anyway, let's move on to our next segment. It's called About a Week Ago. It's where I talk about the viciousness of the 24-hour news cycle in America. Many argue that the 24-hour news cycle is the worst thing that's ever happened to news media as a whole. I am still on the fence about that. I think there's a responsible version of the 24-hour news media cycle, because with so many hours in the day, we could all benefit heavily from the overall coverage of more stories, as opposed to what we tend to get with the 24-hour news media coverage, the same story 50 times over and over again. Perhaps. Just a concept. Moving on. About a week ago's topic this week is very sad. Last week, I was super pumped about the fact that Team USA is back, bitch. Team USA is back in the World Cup after missing out because, that one time. We're not going to talk about it. Anyway, we got a ton of new and young, up-and-coming, high-level elite soccer players that play in the Power 5 conferences, the Power 5 leagues across, Power 5 European leagues across the world, where the best players in the world compete, where they make the most money, they get the best treatment, they get the best gear, they get the best training, all the best tactics, all that jazz like that. We got a bunch of those kids who are from America playing for Team USA, and now they got themselves in a situation for CONCACAF where they're going to, and this took me like almost an entire week to remember, and that's why it's this week. I remembered that this upcoming World Cup is the Slave Cup. If you've not heard, I would suggest you check out Vice News. They usually do a really good job of talking about the sports stories that other major media markets or other major media stories and companies refuse to talk about, because they have a lot of ad dollars on the line and a lot of other things that really hinder that from being successful. But yeah, Qatar is being called the Slave Cup. If you don't know why, there's many instances according to either anecdotal or other people who've either experienced it or people who have heard about other people's experiences, where people are being told like, hey, if you come here and help build the World Cup stadiums, we'll give you this amount of money and you can live in these conditions and all this kind of stuff like that, and you can send money back to your family, which of course is tantalizing to a lot of people who work in the realm of construction. Construction is one of the most lucrative of all the business industries in the world, because guess what? The fact is like, something is always too old and needs to be rebuilt. There's always somebody who wants to build a new loft, a new living complex, a new gym, all that kind of jazz like that. They got a ton of people showing up to help build the World Cup stadiums, and also they're taking their passports away so that they can't leave until the job is done. They are also having them live in tents outside the city, outside the main city, in the conditions that Qatar, which is in the middle of a desert, so it has drastic swings in temperature throughout the course of the year. And it's called the Slave Cup because essentially the people who built the stadiums have been basically, I wouldn't even say basically, the people who built the stadiums were kidnapped and are not being allowed to leave. They are trying to send money back to their families, and they're being told that the money is being sent back, and the families are not able to access the money that is quote unquote being sent back to their families and all that kind of jazz like that. So, I just want you to think about that, because at the end of the day, don't forget what a piece of shit organization FIFA is. Not only do they do a really bad job of running one of the most lucrative businesses on the face of the planet, and that is the global soccer market, essentially, they are corrupt on many facets and many levels, despite the fact that they allegedly eliminated the corruption a couple of years ago. Just wanted to point that out for about a week ago, because it's very easy to get caught up in the drama that is the World Cup draw, to see how cool it is to see Canada back into the World Cup again for the first time since like the 80s, and like Qatar being one of the big success stories, almost a Cinderella type story that's going on, even though we all know that they're backed by Saudi oil money, which we as Americans, complicated relationship, right? Anyway, we move on. We talk about money, or we talking about money, a segment where we talk about, you guessed it, money. This week's number, today's price, is millions and millions. A man by the name of Phil Jones, who is a UK-based NFL fan. He actually is a huge Buccaneers fan. He's a part of I think he's like the head of the UK Buccaneers fan group, and he lives in like Midlands, UK or something like that. I think he's a fan of, I think he's a Man U fan. Based off of what I read. But anyway, he's 66 years old, and he has gone to more Super Bowls than I probably ever will have gone to. He's gone to 12 Super Bowls in his lifetime, and actually the really sad part about the story that I read is that he actually can't go to the Super Bowls anymore because they've gotten too expensive for a man who's truly passionate about football, probably more passionate than the people who are, sitting in the boxes and the C-suites and all that kind of shit like that. Probably more passionate than the random tickets that are being given away for free by corporations and all that kind of shit like that. Make football fan friendly again. We'll see. Anyway, a long ago, many moons ago, back in the 90s, before Tom Brady became the greatest quarterback and possibly greatest football player in the history of football, he bought 4 rookie Tom Brady cards at a memorabilia sale that was going on at the Super Bowl. I think he was like Super Bowl 35. And he bought 4 Tom Brady rookie cards for $6. And apparently he can't, and then he got like an unnumbered rookie card playoff version or something like that as well, for like even cheaper or something like that. But one of those cards reported, a Tom Brady rookie card last year sold for over $3 million. And it's like almost mint 9 condition or whatever, so it's like really high in the actual original print count or whatever, and it sold for $3 million. This guy, Phil Jones, is a huge collector just in general, but he also tries to get like way ahead of the game when it comes to collecting guys who are going to potentially blow up. He mentioned a story about how trading cards has like drifted away from being a thing that kids did and now has become a big industry overall. He talked about buying 2 Joe Burrow rookie cards with for $110 last year, and how he checked online, and ever since the season has ended, because Joe Burrow went to he brought Joe Burrow rookie cards 2 years ago when he was a rookie, and Joe Burrow in his 3rd year in the NFL, or 2nd year in the NFL, went to the Super Bowl. Cards are pretty valuable. He said that it's more than doubled from the amount that he sold for it, which, by the way, still hold on to that shit. It's gonna get even crazier, because now the Bengals are gonna start doing the process of going all in on Joe Burrow, which means that Joe Burrow is gonna, even despite whatever happens about winning the number of Super Bowls, Joe Burrow is going to be put into high stakes games, and he's going to become a high profile football player. Whether he wins those games on a consistent basis or not is still up to him and the team to be decided. We'll find out as time will tell. But yeah, he talked about how he hasn't sold the cards. He doesn't really have a plan for them or whatever, but it's just wild to think about, like, all those years ago. He talked about how he went to a bowl game, and it turned out to be the Orange Bowl, and it was Michigan versus Florida or something like that, and it turned out to be Tom Brady's last college football game ever, and he threw 4 touchdown passes in that game, and he said ever since that happened, Tom Brady is a guy that was on his mind. And that's why he went and bought his rookie card. Not because he was predicting he was going to be great, but he was like, no, that guy, like, it's memories. And he actually made a beautiful point, because I think that's a reason that, once again, I talk about why I love sports so much on this show. I mentioned The Incredibles, that scene where the kid is in the driveway after he saw Mr. Incredible lift up an entire car with one arm, and he keeps coming back, and Mr. Incredible turns around and yells at him. He's like, what do you want? And he's like, I don't know. I just want to see something cool. And I feel like
the way Phil Jones talked about why he collects things is because he's like the memories that go along with it. It's not about the value of the card. It's not about the value of a towel or a photo or a poster or anything like that. It's about the memories that come along with it, because even if it's worth nothing to someone else, it's worth an infinite amount of dollars to me. And I was like, that's kind of how I feel about watching sports all the time. Like, yo, man, like people talk about how they don't watch NBA regular season games. I still remember earlier this year seeing Devontae Graham do the most insane putback dunk while the Hornets were down 30 points in the course of their game versus the Knicks earlier this season, and they got absolutely smoked. But Devontae Graham pulled off like this crazy ass dunk that nobody posted on social media because the Hornets were down so bad. And I was like, that's stupid. Like, that's still a cool dunk. You got to remember the cool things when they happen. Like, what else are we here for if not for the cool things, man? If we're not here to check out the things that bring us joy. And if there's anything that brings you joy, it's a putback dunk, because it takes a crazy amount of timing to read a ball coming off the rim of the basket and take it with your bare hand, usually one-handed, and smash it down knowing that there's another person nearby. I don't think there's a nastier way to get posterized than a putback dunk off of a rebound. But yeah, and it's also the epitome of like what an elite athlete looks like, because they read the play so fast. Usually, like 99% of the time, the ball doesn't bounce like 5 feet in the air above the rim. It bounces like an inch off of the rim, and they finish by smashing it down by running in and doing it. Anyway, that's all I got for We Talking Money or We Talking Money. A very wonderful story about a man by the name of Phil Jones, who has 4 Tom Brady rookie cards locked away in a vault somewhere in the United Kingdom. And he values the memories of them. He knows that the value of those cards is extremely high. He doesn't know what he's going to do with them, according to him, but he thinks that he's going to pass those and a bunch of other sports memorabilia that he's gotten in his life on to his kids. Shout out Phil Jones, being a good dad there. So yeah, we move on, ladies and gentlemen. My media suggestion for this week, and personally, I think you should watch it more than once, because I know I did. So one shining moment is typically reserved specifically for March Madness, in particular the men's championship, and it is the highlight of all the cool things that happened in the course of the tournament. A fan, took it upon themselves. At first I thought it was Worldwide Wob, but I don't think he would do something like that because it would be disrespectful to players, and he typically wants to have a connection with them or something like that, because I know a lot of NBA athletes actually follow him on Twitter and stuff like that, so it would have been actually really mean. But some fan put together a one shining moment of all the stupid shit that happened to the Lakers throughout the course of the season. A ton of air balls. There was one time that the one they just showed, a 3 getting drained in somebody's face. Russell Westbrook running out of talent, as CJ McCollum would say, when going up for a dunk and missing it on the rim, getting hung up on the rim. Anthony Davis trying to fight Dwight Howard. Trevor Ariza airballing a free throw, and a flurry of other just absolutely horrible things that happen that all have connection to the song One Shining Moment, like it does every single year, because life is tough. Life is hard, especially in the NBA. And, don't worry, Lakers fans, it's over now. They can't hurt you anymore. We take our next hydration break, ladies and gentlemen. Last one of the show. When we come back, we'll be doing What's Poppin', and we'll talk about a bunch of other stories that are going down within the realm of sports. Let's see what song we're going to do. Let's see. Oh, man. Song we should be doing, Dancing in the Flames by Christina Gucas for 3 minutes and 23 seconds. Actually, Fighting These Battles by Christina Gucas. When we come back, we'll talk about Major League Baseball and a bunch of other cool shit that's happening. Don't worry, guys. I didn't rip you off. We're good. We're good. We're good. I was trying to recruit. I'm trying to do my job. I'm supposed to be the head coach of a team. I'm supposed to be an adult. Was not doing great with that. Anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Time will tell. Time will tell. Here's hoping. Anyway, we finished what? We did everything. Oh, it's time to talk about what's going on. What's going on? There's a lot of things going on. A lot of things going on. This is a segment where we talk about what's going on in sports. It's pretty simple. I try and keep this shit relatively simple because I'm a little slow on the uptake, if you know what I mean. So, we start here by just talking about like random stories that I saw that I thought were cool. Devon Allen, former Oregon wide receiver, signed a 3-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. He is a guy who hasn't played football since 2016, and the reason he was so highly sought after is because he played football really well, and he is also an Olympic-level track athlete. He finished 4th and 5th at the Olympics in the 110-meter hurdles. He ran a 4.35 40, and 4.3 is always going to get people's attention, especially if you have some kind of football background, which he obviously does. And this is the crazy part. This is the wild part. Mad respect on this one. He plans to compete at the World Championships for hurdles and track and field. He said his plan is to also break the world record. You know, shout out to you, man. Shout out to you for aiming high once again. A man with a mission right here. He also said that he will be reporting for Philadelphia Eagles camp a week later, which is wild to think about that his body can recover that fast, but I guess it can. All the power to him. Can't wait to see him in the NFL. Shout out to Devon Allen. Other story coming out very recently, thanks to a Barstool podcast. I'll actually say what company makes it because, quite frankly, it's fuck Barstool on this podcast at all times. I respect and like Big Cat and PFT commenter sometimes. I actually like PFT commenter a lot more than like Big Cat because Big Cat says some suspect things sometimes in terms of like he was talking about they had like Tom Segura on their podcast most recently. They had 2 comedians on, which by the way, like super annoying when you're a person who's like a sports guy and does not care as much about comedy. You know, they've recently become friends with what the fuck is his name? Bert Kreischer. There you go. They've become friends with him. He's been on their podcast twice in the past like couple of months or whatever. Tom Segura hosted a podcast with him, and they were talking about like, yeah, you know, like Big Cat said some shit like, oh man, you know, recently people have like really been coming after comedians, and I was like, yeah, people come after comedians when they say fucked up things, and I don't think we need to live in a world where comedians can say whatever they want. And apparently he does. I've never been a person where I was just like, comedians can say whatever they want at any given time because it's a joke and it's important, and we need comedians to be the people who dictate, like who are like the record keepers of society and how we need to move forward. I have never agreed with that mentality. I respect people who can really perfect the art of comedy, but I also realize that like jokes can hurt people. That is the premise of bullying. Like, it's funny to one person and hurtful to the other. That's like the backbone of bullying. So like to try and pretend that you're supposed to just sit there and take a joke from somebody just because they're a comedian, or you're supposed to like not be offended by a comedian saying something fucked up, for instance. Because that would mean that comedians can go up there and say racial slurs. That would mean that comedians can go up there and tell people to like kill themselves or hurt themselves and stuff like that, and face no consequences whatsoever. There cannot be people within our society above reproach and consequence. We already have too many of those people. They run this place, right? Anyway, we don't need that. We don't need more people doing that. Anyway, Barstool podcast that I was talking about, Busting with the Boys. Sam Darnold is man, I really want to talk about another. I'm going to do it real quick. They also got into the fact that, Tom Segura asked them about why their ESPN show lasted for 1 episode, and they said it was out of their hands because apparently, like, John Skipper supported PFT commenter and PFT commentator and Big Cat, but then there was a lot of other people who were like higher up at ESPN who found out that like, hey, guess what? Barstool post about like stupid shit all the time, and then on top of that, they post fucked up shit sometimes. They are also run by a person who has consistently proven that he is fucked, that he's fucked up in a lot of different ways, and is unapologetic about it, right? I've talked about Dave Portnoy till I'm blue in the face on here. I'll just keep pointing this out. He's a white man who said the N-word, who has said the N-word multiple times on multiple media platforms associated with his brand. And when charged, when asked to apologize, he said he will not ever surrender to the mob. He got on Twitter and basically tried to clown people for calling him out for saying the N-word because he was singing song lyrics, because he was saying shit. I don't know much. He's been accused of sexual assault from what I understand, multiple times, and I don't pretend to sit here and know all the details of that. I can tell you what I saw in real time. I saw a guy who, once again, I listened to that podcast, and you can go back and listen to those episodes of this podcast if you want to. But I saw they have a podcast where literally all the minorities on their show, all the people who are minorities were on their show, and they had to do multiple podcasts together to explain why their boss is an asshole, instead of their boss explaining why their boss is an asshole. And their boss is like the head of a media company. He was just shocked and dismayed at the number of people who were upset that he said nigga to open up a podcast. And there was a black woman on one of the podcasts I listened to, and she mentioned how she told Dave not to say it, and he still did it. And they wanted to get on. They talked to Tom Segura, and they're like, "Yeah, we're just out here having fun and doing our thing." And I'm like, "Bro, like, I get it. That's your dude. He pays you. He signs your checks and shit like that. Y'all think that he made you? He really didn't. Y'all would have been successful, like, no matter where y'all went and ended up doing. And I get it. Y'all probably wouldn't be as big in quote unquote traditional sports media because they're so hamstrung with so many other things. Because of the same reasons that ESPN kicked them off air, they have advertisers they got to respond to for sure. And they're like, yeah, you do something weird, and then like some bigwig in a boardroom tells you they don't like that, and then all of a sudden you're off air. And I'm like, nah, dude, like y'all have done a lot of messed up stuff. Like, what are you talking? It's not like one thing, and that's my biggest gripe about the Pardon My Take guys. Like, they just never will admit that they've gone they've had people who they work with that have gone too fucking far multiple times. And I get it that those are their friends, and Dave Portnoy is their boss. He's their guy. He's the dude who supported them when nobody else would. But the fact of the matter is like, Dave's a fucking asshole, and more than likely, Dave is a fucking racist. Like, that's a real thing, and I get it. As a black person, I constantly have to ask myself, am I engaging in conversation or hanging out with a person who is prejudiced or racist in any way, shape, or form? And I'm like legit serious about that shit. Like, I have to, like, every white person I've ever talked to, I've had to assess whether or not they're racist. And I have, you know, it's been tough because it's like, oh man, if you weren't such an asshole, like, we could be cool. But you have something, like, there's something wrong with you because you are a racist. Like, racism is a sign of a mental flaw in my eyes. But and like the cognitive dissonance they show on their show all the time is about like why people don't like them. They pretend that the world doesn't like them because they're out here having fun. And it's like, no, the world doesn't like you because you just so happen to constantly end up shitting on the same group of people all the time. And like I said before, it's hard for me to support Deion Sanders. I support Deion Sanders because, one, he's like trying to uplift the HBCU, and quite frankly, he's using a traditionally and historically white platform. Like, Barstool is so white, it's ridiculous. I would say it's even whiter than like general sports media. And he's using a really white platform to push and support and gain and garner support for a black college on a level that no other university's been able to get, right? Because, you know, he coaches at Jackson State, and he's got a white platform pushing a black college. And my biggest concern is that they're using Jackson State as a cover for their racism. Because I guarantee you, Dave Portnoy, based off what I understand about him, is the kind of guy to believe that shit. Is the kind of guy to make that happen. Anyway, the kind of guy to think that because he helps uplift and build Jackson State that he can't be racist. Because he sounds like that kind of guy. He sounds like it. Based off his comprehension of what racism is, he sounds like that kind of guy. That's enough talking about Barstool. Anyway, let's talk about Sam Darnold, who went on a Barstool podcast. He went on Bussin' with the Boys, which is with Taylor Lewan, the left tackle for the Tennessee Titans, and Will Compton, who is a free agent, apparently. He was playing with the Raiders earlier last season and all kind of jazz. He's a linebacker who used to play for the Tennessee Titans, and he's bounced around, but he's real cool with a lot of the people with the Titans, and because he played there the longest so far out of his stints in the NFL. Sam Darnold said that he's pretty confident he'll be playing quarterback next season. For who? And he says it's truly whatever. This is a quote from him on the show, Bussin' with the Boys from Barstool with Taylor Lewan. It's truly whatever happens, because at the end of the day, it's out of my control, and I know that. I have enough security in myself where I can say I know I'm a good quarterback. I know I can be a good quarterback in this league. Don't know how he got that belief, but when you're an elite level athlete, you gotta have that kind of belief, even if you haven't shown it. I've proved it. He said, I've proved it to end that quote, and I wonder where. And I know there's a team, if something happens, that would want me. The Panthers, don't forget, were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They lost, as you can tell. They also have the 6th overall pick in a draft that is quarterback weak, but as we get closer and closer to the draft, people are talking more and more about the quarterbacks every single day, and that is just nothing but applied pressure by the media that subsequently leaks into the fans, who subsequently put that kind of pressure, whether it be it's 100% externally on the team to go out there and make something happen. I'm going to tell you this right now, the Carolina Panthers are not a quarterback away. So if you hear anybody saying that, it's not true. They basically had a month and a half of good football, and then their whole season went off the rails. It had nothing to do with Sam Darnold getting hurt. It didn't have very much to do with Cam Newton coming back and playing for him. It had a lot more to do with the fact that they got down consistently very early, and then found themselves in a lot of comeback situations, and they were like on the cusp of coming back. They were very much like the Minnesota Vikings, except they racked up more losses. The Minnesota Vikings were able to squeak out a lot more wins in those one-possession games, which I think the Vikings had like 14 of their 17 games last season were one-possession games or some shit like that. But yeah, the Panthers are in an interesting situation. They are openly looking for another quarterback while having Sam Darnold, who if you're a talent assessor, you're not sitting there saying the month and a half that you were good when you first started with the Panthers is even close to the amount of evidence to say that you've proven that you can play in this league. Matt Castle performed far better over a longer period of time, and still kind of got pushed to the wayside, right? Was able to stay in the league for a long time. Obviously, he was an excellent fill-in for Tom Brady that one season that they missed the playoffs because they lost a tiebreaker. I think it was to the Dolphins, right? And I think that was the year the Dolphins had like the biggest turnaround in NFL history from 1 year record to the next year record or something like that. Matt Castle will eventually go on to play for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Matt Castle so far in his career has played significantly better than Sam Darnold. And I don't hesitate when I say that. Sam Darnold's got a lot of people talking about him all the time. He used to play in New York, so he has a lot of eyes on him. You can tell a lot of people stopped talking about him when the Carolina Panthers season went down the drain, because even when he was in New York with the Jets, when they sucked ass, they were still talking about Sam Darnold having great potential. Didn't hear much of that last season when the Carolina Panthers fell off the wagon. Lo and behold, turns out a smaller media market doesn't do as good a job as penetrating the social networks of people who are not either in those markets or paying attention to those markets. Anyway, yeah, that was the quote. That's what happened. You tell me what you think. Hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook. Tell me in the chat if you want to. self-belief is important because if you don't believe in you, who will, right? And Sam Darnold got a lot of that self-belief. I got to give him that credit because saying that I've proven that I can play in this league is a bold statement. NFL draft stuff, Derek Stingley Jr., who has been a combination of not talked about at all because he's been hurt vast majority of draft season, but also one of the most not even problematic, one of the most, according to a bunch of people, difficult to really peg as to who he's going to be. A lot of his recent tape, according to people who actually break down tape and understand football in general, he is spotty in terms of the efficiency of his play. There has also been his situation, Derek Stingley Jr., LSU cornerback, now in the NFL draft, declared for the NFL draft, didn't compete at the NFL Combine because of an injury, just had his pro day very recently and blew it out of the water. He jumped 38.5 inches. He ran a 4.3 40-yard dash, and he ran like a 4.4 for a second one or whatever. And a lot of people are saying that the scouts who were at the pro day confirmed the 4.3 and the low 4.4 time for the 40-yard dash. So that's pretty impressive, especially for a corner. He's like 6 feet tall. He had a Liz Frank injury, which is, of course, a broken bone. Is a broken bone in your foot, which, of course, is very important if you're trying to play cornerback in the NFL. But, yeah, his whole deal is like he came out the gate really hot. And then he had to spend 2 more years in college. One of those years was the COVID year, and another year was the Liz Frank injury year. So he has kind of not had as much tape as a lot of people would like to say, but he's still projected by so many to be a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. Despite all of the questions about him, you can't resist the fact that he's got all the measurable tools of success, including the fact that he's already play defense against NFL caliber wide receivers in his time at LSU and playing against all those SEC teams. There's no question about that whatsoever. But I'm just glad to see Derek Stingley get some positive news to come out of draft season, because if there's been one guy who, anytime people talk about him, it's never good, it has been Derek Stingley Jr., because they don't have anything to go off of that is testing material, that is opinions of him as a person in the interview process and all that jazz like that. So it's been all about like, the dude was hurt, the dude's recovered from an injury, and you know how the NFL is, guys. You know how college football is, you know how football is in general. If you hurt, you're a bad person. If you're injured, you're a bad person. I'm dead fucking serious, and y'all know that too. But yeah, I'm still seeing him projected to be a top 15 pick in the draft. Some people are projecting him to go to the Minnesota Vikings at ESPN, which is clutch. But for the most part, one of the more interesting stories in this NFL draft, considering that the late push for quarterbacks hasn't started yet. They're still staying pretty low profile, I would say, as of now. But we'll see what happens. Moving on to baseball stories, then we go to college basketball, then we'll talk about the NBA, and we'll wrap it up. Major League Baseball, Joe Judge apparently turned down an extension that would give him over $200 million for the next 7 years. He is going into free agency. And the Mets national game for opening day started late because there was a power outage and some of the field lights weren't working. Interesting. And then Ohtani in the on the opening day start for the Angels against the Astros threw 9 Ks. Still playing pretty fly. Still dominating, still doing the things that you would expect from the two-way elite level player. I will say he also went hitless in this game, but nonetheless, very, very impressive. I think his first pitch of the season was a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. So, yeah, Ohtani out here holding it down for everybody. College basketball stuff. If you didn't hear, the South Carolina Gamecocks are national champions after absolutely shellacking the fuck out of the UConn Huskies in the national title game. Asia Wilson was there celebrating with the whole squad and all that kind of stuff like that. Dawn Staley has now become the first black woman ever to win 2 national titles in the history of college basketball. Shout out to her, especially considering college basketball has a long legacy of, you guessed it, not having black people or in particular black women as head coaches in general. Dawn Staley has 2 of them things. If you don't know, last time she won a championship, she sent part of the net because she was given part of the net from the first black woman to ever win a national title game. She gave her part of her championship net, and she carried it around in her wallet. And so Dawn Staley is paying it forward by giving it to a ton of prospective national champions and inspiring them to keep pushing forward in their coaching careers despite all the troubles and tribulations that go with it. I'm assuming there's probably going to be even more people that get more of this net the second time around. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see that story. That's going to be pretty dope. But yeah, so far in women's college basketball lately, we've been seeing UConn still have their excellent seasons like they always have had, and still have like all the excellent players come out, like the Sue Birds of the world, of course the Breanna Stewarts of the world, the KDs of women's basketball, if you will. We've been seeing still that happening, but what we have also been seeing is the rise of other powerhouses. Like Stanford won the championship last year. Ole Miss had one of their best seasons in program history this past year because they were able to convince a player to transfer over who wanted to build something, like intentionally build something. As a guy who plays Quidditch. Players wanting to build something from the ground up, not too common. Anyway, and then South Carolina, of course, winning it most recently. They were also in the title game last year. So like a lot of teams actually rising up to challenge UConn for the first time in what seems like forever, especially considering like the go-to thing that people complain about on the internet when it comes to UConn is the media bias that comes along with it. So many people want to talk about everything that UConn does right because everything that UConn has ever done is correct, right? They talk about getting AZ Fudd and Paige Buckners and all that kind of stuff like that. So that's interesting. That path is this battle is gonna be interesting because there's gonna be a lot more people that jump into the fray, I'm sure, as time goes on. Because once again, there are more and more women playing basketball. There are more and more talented young ladies who are getting their opportunity to shine because there are less hurdles in their way of them playing basketball. Big facts. Oh, by the way, South Carolina might be able to run it back. They got 4 of their 5 starters from this past year coming back. They have the number 2 prospect from a year ago, Raven Johnson, coming back. She had like a season-ending knee injury that knocked her out of this season. And then they're also getting a transfer from Oregon State, who's considered to be one of the best seniors seniors in the transfer portal. So Dawn Staley trying to run that thing back, get that back-to-back, and get 3 of them things. We'll see what happens. Kansas, they won the national championship. They pulled off a massive 16-point comeback versus North Carolina. By the way, the biggest thing when I saw this game, one, the shooting was terrible. Until like the last couple possessions or whatever. The shooting was terrible. 2, Baycott and Caleb Love rolling their ankles. Not only in this round, not only in the championship game, but the rounds before, and the rounds before that is tough, man. It's tough, especially when you're playing in the championship game. Everybody got to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, it's no, sub me out the game real quick, coach. I gotta rest my ankle or whatever. You gotta figure it out while you're on the court. Caleb Love had to keep running until his ankle started working again, and he had to do that for a couple of possessions. In transition, he had to run on his busted ankle, and they were still able to figure it out a little bit. Caleb got a couple of shots off, got a couple of good passes. Baycott never seemingly was himself. I think he went like 3 for 13 from the field. It was terrible, man. Anyway, North Carolina got cooked in transition by Kansas, and that's how they really got back into the game. Kansas was aggressive in transition to get those layups, baby, and it paid off for them big time, especially with North Carolina starting off the second half, missing a ton of shots. Overall, this tournament was sick, let's be for real. It didn't have a ton of buzzer beaters that sent a lot of teams home or whatever, but I guess we forget because it happened like so long ago. We saw the best Cinderella story in the history of the NCAA tournament with St. Peter's. They are the deepest a 15 seed has ever gotten in the NCAA tournament, which is that makes them the best Cinderella story ever. Truly the bitterest of ends for Coach K in his coaching career, losing to North Carolina one more time, and then North Carolina going on to the championship game to lose to Kansas. It's got to be stuff that honestly I think is a little bit more fitting, because there's nothing like a rival that respects the greatness that you've built but does not fear it. And North Carolina for whatever you had to say about that team going into it, because Duke, according to a bunch of people, they basically got 4 NBA players. They got four guys who are going to be NBA players in a couple of months on their roster right now. And North Carolina, despite having, I want to say 2, was able to go out there and figure out how to beat Duke twice in huge games, and one of those being the most anticipated college basketball game ever. Shout out for a great tournament. We still have a bunch of big questions about the NBA draft coming up, like Jabari Smith, I feel like has quietly slipped into the number 1 spot for a lot of people, and we're starting to see that like percolate its way throughout the NBA draft community, especially after the tournament. We are asking more and more questions about Gonzaga. Are they a blue blood? Are they a powerhouse? Are they a wagon? And they still have so much unfinished business, and they're getting to this point where they're getting all these one and dones. So it's like when these tournament losses happen like this, they get screwed. They can't find any continuity. They can't continue to do and build on what they had before. But yeah, man, interesting. Oh, by the way, just wanted to point out one more thing. Junior McKenzie. He's a 5-star athlete. He is been recruited by a flurry of teams. He's committed to Duke. The machine don't stop, baby, just because the conductor is not at the controls. Oregon State, this is the women's team. This is one of the wilder stories. Apparently, Oregon State is one of like 5 big programs in women's college basketball where 4 of their starters are in the transfer portal right now. Oregon State just came off of going to the women's NIT for the first time in 7 years. They've gone to 7 straight NCAA tournaments, and they have 4 of their starters who declared for the transfer portal, which is brutal if you're a head coach. Moving on, other stuff to talk about, ladies and gents. We need to talk about streaks, peaks, and ditches this week. We got a couple of things. We got streaks and peaks. Winning streaks, talking about NBA games, right? Miami Heat, who have clinched the number 1 seed in the East, are on a 6-game win streak. There are 6 teams tied with a 3-game win streak as of right now, and the Boston I think that messed that one up. Ignore that one. Losing streaks so far, these are really sad. The Portland Trailblazers have lost 10 straight, and the LA Lakers and Indiana Pacers have lost 8 straight. That one hurts. This next one that we got here, let me make sure that I phrased this correctly. This next part is not peaks. It is specifically the 3 biggest heartbreaks in the NBA season so far. This next segment, the 3 biggest heartbreaks in the NBA season so far. See what we got here. Number 3, the New York Knicks. They had their first playoff appearance in a decade last season. They have the Tom Thibodeau Classic, where the first year that Tom Thibodeau is there, the team sees great success. And then after that, a massive string of injuries happen that derails the season. But mostly, they just don't play as well as they did the first time around because they don't have the starters playing 99% of the minutes. The overall progression of a lot of players has just not been there for the Knicks. So it's a little tough to see them this season. They will not be advancing on to the playoffs. Oh, man. I totally butchered this one. Let me fix that for you guys real quick. Number 2 on the list, the Portland Trailblazers. They're 27-54. Yeah, you read that correctly. 27-54 on the season. Just in 2019, they were Western Conference finalists. They had made it to the playoffs 8 straight years up until this year. They finished top 5. They have had 5 top 5 finishes in the West in the last decade. And then the saddest thing that happened for them this season, not only Damian Lillard's seemingly season-ending injury, but he came back and has played vast majority. Whatever. We're going to have to redo this again, guys. This is one of my TikTok segments. So, anyway. But CJ McCollum gets traded away. Top 5 finishes in the West. CJ McCollum getting traded away broke my heart, honestly, because it was the Trailblazers signaling surrender, and another small market team gets also close but can't get over the ever waning precipice, the gap between being a contender and a champion. That was heartbreaking. So, yeah. And number 1 the LA Lakers. No surprise there. 31-49 on the season, ladies and gentlemen, and currently on a 8-game losing streak with 1 game left in the season. They will be going up against the Denver Nuggets, who are in a position where they need that win versus the Lakers to try and break up a tie between them and the Utah Jazz, but that's a conversation for another day. The LA Lakers, 2020, just a few years ago, 2020 NBA champs, traded for Russell Westbrook, which is not panned out so far, but I will say there's a lot of other factors other than Russell Westbrook at work with why the Lakers did not function this season. One of those being Anthony Davis either being hurt or playing hurt vast majority of this season, and then of course the drop off of quality role players has not helped with guys like Alex Caruso, Josh Hart, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, D'Angelo Russell, Lonzo Ball, all getting moved in terms of trade. Oh, Kyle Kuzma, I forgot, getting moved in trades or being released into free agency for old vets to come into the team and not do what they're supposed to do. I guess we'll call it that. That's the nice way to phrase it, right? All right, let's take that one from the top. In case you missed it, these are the 3 heartbreaks of the NBA season, the things that hit the hardest for NBA fans, truly sad realizations, if you will. Number 3 on the list, the New York Knicks, their first playoff appearance in a decade last year, where of course they lost to the Atlanta Hawks in a very famous matchup in MSG, the Tom Thibodeau Classic, where everybody plays a shit ton of minutes at the beginning of the season, and then the following year everybody's either hurt or just doesn't perform as well as they did last year, offensively and defensively, because remember the Knicks were like a top 5 defense and at one point the number 1 defense in the NBA, and then the overall progression of players on the team has just not been there. Number 2 on the list, they're 27-54. Super sad. They actually lead the league right now in terms of losing streak with 10. They've lost 10 games in a row. They were a conference finalist in the West in just the year of 2019, just a couple years ago. They have gone to the playoffs 8 consecutive years, and that streak has come to an end as well. They have finished in the top 5 in 5 of the last 10 seasons in the West. The Portland Trailblazers not only signaled the end of an era, but probably the signaling of the end of their playoff hopes when they traded away C.J. McCollum. Damian Lillard was hurt a good chunk of the season as well, came back, and it just hasn't been the same since the dynamic duo got broken up and really broke the hearts of a lot of basketball fans, except the Pelicans fans who are really pumped to have C.J. McCollum. Number 1 on the list, you know it. LA Lakers, 31-49, currently on an 8-game losing streak. They were NBA champions just a mere 2 years ago in the year 2020 in the bubble. They traded for Russell Westbrook, who a lot of people have turned into the scapegoat for this situation, when in fact, Russell Westbrook has been one of the few people who's just been available to actually play these games. Unlike Anthony Davis, who has been hurt vast majority of the season, and then of course a ton of quality role players being let out the front door, either not being re-signed or traded away. You talk about Kyle Kuzma this past summer, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, D'Angelo Russell at one point, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The list goes on of people who were just let go that the Lakers could have used this season and in past seasons to really bolster this roster. And those are the 3 heartbreaks of the NBA playoffs. Actually, the 3 heartbreaks of NBA Cancun. So everybody hands in. 1, 2, 3, Cancun. There you go. Anyway, shout out to everybody who makes that happen. Shout out to absolutely no one. No one. I can't even think of the person to give the shout out to. Anyway, other stuff to talk about in the NBA. Teams that are actually going to continue to play basketball after this week, after Sunday, when the regular season is over with. All the playoff spots are locked up, ladies and gentlemen. So this is actually kind of wild because the play-in tournament is going to be sick. So for the Eastern Conference, it's these 4 teams are in the mix for one of the playoff spots. Or these 4 teams are in the mix. They haven't solidified which of the 3 spots in the play-in tournament are going to be taken. They're going to be taken, and it does matter because one, you only need one win to win. You only need one victory in the play-in tournament to advance on, and the other one you need 2. The Atlanta Hawks, the Brooklyn Nets, the Cleveland Cavaliers. By the way, just wanted to take this time to point out one thing about the Cavaliers that I've been wondering for a really long time, especially considering when it looked like they had playoff hopes, playoff aspirations. I thought they were going to make the playoffs flat out. I didn't think they were going to end up being a play-in team, but here we are. Nonetheless, they are one win away from potentially being the first team since the year 1998, which, by the way, was the last time the Cavaliers made the playoffs when some dude named LeBron James wasn't on the roster. Every year since 1998, which by the way, for reference, I was 6 in 1998. Every year since 1998, every Cavaliers playoff team has had LeBron James on it, except this potential team here that has the Rookie of the Year in Evan Mobley. Shout out Darius Garland as well. Shout out Sexland, even though the sex part of Sexland is out for the season. Shout out Darius Garland for helping out big time. Jared Allen looking killer as well. Somehow making the best. By the way, just wanted to point out, Jared Allen got traded away in that massive trade for the Brooklyn Nets, and somehow the Nets and the Cavaliers have, lo and behold, ended up in the same place in the play-in tournament. But yeah, so it's the Hawks, the Nets, and the Cavaliers, and the Charlotte Hornets who are going to be in the Eastern Conference play-in game. Western Conference, it is going to be the Timberwolves versus the Clippers. They know the matchups already. Timberwolves versus the Clippers. By the way, don't forget the Clippers made the Western Conference Finals just a year ago. The Pelicans, who are potentially looking at a Zion Williamson return on, I think it's a long shot at this point. Same thing with Kawhi Leonard. They're saying that Kawhi Leonard could be back at some point during the season or whatever. Have yet to see that. And then, of course, the Pelicans will take on the San Antonio Spurs, who do have the head-to-head advantage over the Pelicans, which is going to play big in terms of who is what seed in this one, because once again, we mentioned, like, in certain situations, you only need one win to be able to get out of the play-in tournament and claim a playoff spot. So, yeah, back to the East. Let's talk about some things that are for sure happening. The number 1 seed is locked up. It belongs to the culture. The Miami Heat are the number 1 seed in the East. Shout out Jimmy Butler. By the way, Timberwolves in the playoffs for the first time since 2018. The play-in, sorry. If you count the play-in as the playoffs. Some people do, some people don't. I'm not here to judge. I actually don't know if I do or don't yet, because it seems like the play-in tournament going ham right now. The play-in tournament going too hard in the paint. From what I can see, because there's a team that made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals in here. There's a team that made it to the Eastern Conference finals in the Eastern Conference playoffs. And then the best Cavaliers team we've seen since LeBron James left Cleveland is in the play-in tournament. Oh, and then the resurgence of the Charlotte Hornets has begun. And then for the Western side, Western Conference finalists from a year ago, the Pelicans, who are like a big-time, super young team that some people speculate is not one of the teams in the NBA that actually wants to win games, but that's not for me to determine. The San Antonio Spurs and Greg Popovich, and then, of course, the Timberwolves, led by Karl Anthony Towns, actually led by Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. I just want to be very specific about that, very particular, because there is a hierarchy that is going on in there, and Anthony Edwards is above it in Karl Anthony Towns, who's just an elite level player at his position. Number 2 up for grabs. The number 2 seed in the East is up for grabs between the 76ers, the Milwaukee Bucks, and hold on. Oh, right, the team that everybody keeps forgetting about. Not the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks we all think about. The Boston Celtics, who basically flipped their entire season around. Wild to think about. First-year head coach, flipped the whole season up on him. Jason Tatum's playing better than he's played in probably the last 3 or 4 years. And that's saying a lot because he's played at an all-star level for a really long time. Other factors that could be weighing in on things in the East. If you don't know, you're probably going to hear about this until the cows come home. And then probably when the cows come home too, because the cows are probably going to tell you. Toronto has a vaccine. Canada, the entire nation of Canada, has a requirement for participants to enter their country to be vaccinated, and that goes for NBA players. So if the Nets, in some way, shape, or form, end up having to play the Toronto Raptors, who have tapped out, they are actually just a straight up playoff team. Shout out to Spicy P and the boys out there. And they are a playoff team. And if they end up somehow having to play the Brooklyn Nets, depending upon how the tournament bracket shakes out, the Nets will not have Kyrie available to them again. It's almost like they've regressed as they recently were able to they were able to give exemptions for vaccinations for performers and entertainers, which Kyrie Irving is. But yeah, Western Conference stuff that's going down. The Suns are in the midst of the best season in franchise history. No big deal. They got the most wins in franchise history. I saw a graphic where they were like 63 wins and 63 losses. What an experience for Devin Booker and the emergence, because 3 years ago the Suns went 19-63 on the season, and now they are 63-19 on the season. Yeah, wow, what a time, what a journey, right? And they almost beat the Clippers the next night after they got the 63rd win, and they sat Chris Paul and Devin Booker, so that was pretty impressive. But yeah, they got the eyes on the prize, baby. They cooking right now. I will say, historically, having crazy, ridiculous record-setting record for your team does not bode well for the playoffs. I guess we're going to find out. The Jazz and the Nuggets are scrapping it out for that 5th seed. Currently, they are both tied. They have 1 game left this season. The Nuggets will play the Lakers, and the Jazz will play the Blazers. That's right. I went and said the Nuggets will play the Lakers, who are on an 8-game losing streak, and the Jazz will play the Blazers, who are on a 10-game losing streak, which is the longest in the league, even longer. It's actually twice as long and then some than the losing streak that Detroit is on right now. So yeah, that's gonna get shaken out. Make sure if you care about that, that's actually happened tomorrow. Almost every team in the league is playing tomorrow. Which actually I say tomorrow, I mean later today. Today is April 9th. It's 3:03 a.m. in the morning. Shout out to everybody who is gonna watch the show later. It's a banger. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I can't wait to see what happens in the playoffs. It's gonna be sick. It's going to be sick. I'm actually super pumped for the play-in tournament for the first time since it got instituted, and I can't wait to see what happens. On the real, though, shout out to everybody who checks out the show. I really appreciate you. Check out the replay of the show on YouTube and on Twitch. Like and subscribe right now. Bang the like button. Hit the subscribe button. All that jazz like that. Hit the follow button if you're watching on Twitch. If you checking this out retroactively, feel free to leave comments. All that kind of jazz like that. Have a good time. Follow me on Twitter, FB_playbook. Follow me on Instagram at TheAshtonForever. That's also my TikTok handle, TheAshtonForever. No number 4 in it, just forever. Shout out everybody who watches this show. I really appreciate it. I see the number of views that we get retroactively on the show, so somebody's out there watching, and I appreciate you every single time you do, because I know you could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be with me at some point. If you're in the distant future, my offer still stands. If you are in the distant future and you want to send a message via the comment section from the distant future as to who's going to win the next 10 Super Bowls, please let me know. Your boy could use that money. Anyway, I'm out. Make sure you wash your hands, wash your ass, eat some food, drink some water, goddammit, and have a great weekend. Ooh.